Ibrahim Traore visits a hospital and discovers that the cleaning lady is his adoptive mother. The sun was just rising over Ouagadougou, capital of Burkina Faso, when President Ibrahim Traore made a sudden decision. That morning, instead of following his official schedule filled with meetings, he felt a strong need to meet the people directly. Without telling his usual security team, he announced he wanted to visit the Delgado Ouedraogo National Hospital. It is one of the biggest hospitals in the country. A president must see his people's reality with his own eyes, he told his chief of staff, who tried to stop him. How can I make the right decisions from my office if I don't know how people live? Ibrahim Traore arrived at the hospital in a simple car with just 2 quiet bodyguards. He wore a traditional Burkinabe shirt without any official ceremony. When he arrived, the hospital director, informed at the last minute, greeted him nervously. "Mr. President, we are honored. If we had known earlier, we would have prepared." "That's exactly why I came this way," Traore said gently. "Show me the hospital as it is every day." The hallways were full. Patients were waiting, sitting on simple benches or even on the floor. Some recognized him and looked surprised and happy. Others, too worried or in pain, didn't notice the man passing by. Ibrahim stopped many times, kneeling to speak to a mother with her sick child, shaking the hand of an old man whose eyes filled with tears when he saw the president. "We are with you," he told each person. "We are working to make things better." But he could not ignore what he saw. Old medical equipment, not enough medicine, tired workers. Paint was peeling from the walls. Drops of water were falling from the ceiling in some places, making small puddles on the tiled floor. Dr. Ouattara, head of pediatrics, joined the visit. He was a man around 50. His face showed tiredness, but his eyes still had strong determination. "Mr. President, would you visit our intensive care unit? That is where we take the most serious cases, and also where we need help the most." Traore followed the doctor through a maze of hallways. They turned a corner, and suddenly, the president's foot slipped on a wet spot. He almost fell, but quickly found his balance again. "Be careful, the floor was just cleaned," said a woman's voice. Ibrahim turned and saw an older woman wearing a faded blue uniform, holding a bucket and mop. She kept her head down, clearly embarrassed to have almost caused the president to fall. "I'm sorry, sir," she said, softly, without looking up. "It's nothing, madam. I wasn't watching where I walked," he replied kindly. He was about to move on when something about the woman, maybe her voice or the way she stood, gave him a strange feeling. A small shiver ran down his back. He stopped, looking more closely at her face under her traditional headscarf. "We should continue, Mr. President," said the doctor. Ouattara wanted to show his department, but Ibrahim stood still, frozen in time. This woman, her hands tired from years of hard work, her face turned away. Why did she look so familiar? "What is your name?" he asked suddenly. The cleaning lady looked surprised by the question. She slowly raised her head, showing a face marked by age, but still gentle. "My name is Aminata," she said in a soft voice. That name echoed in Ibrahim's mind like a distant memory. Aminata, a common name in Burkina Faso, and yet it felt special. "Thank you, Aminata," he said, unable to explain the strange feeling inside him. He continued his visit, but he couldn't stop thinking about her. Something in her face brought back hidden memories, small pieces of a forgotten past. It was like he had seen her before, but couldn't remember when. The visit went on through the hospital, but Ibrahim's mind was far away. The image of Aminata stayed with him like a puzzle from his memory. He tried to focus on the doctors and their problems, but his thoughts kept returning to that moment. As Dr. Ouattara showed the maternity ward, Ibrahim saw Aminata again, walking down a nearby hallway. He felt something strong inside him and politely left the group. "Doctor, please continue the visit with my chief of staff. I will join you soon." Without waiting for a reply, he walked down the hallway and caught up with Aminata. She jumped a little when she saw him. "Sorry to bother you, Aminata," he said gently, his voice soft despite his position. I would like to ask you a few questions if that's okay. Aminata looked nervous, her hands tightening on her mop. I didn't do anything wrong, Mr. President, she said, her voice shaky. I know, he replied with a kind smile. Tell me, how long have you worked in this hospital? 23 years, sir, she answered, still not looking up. I started working here after I left my village. And which village are you from? From Kolweogo, in the San Matanga province, in the north. Ibrahim felt a shock. Kolweogo. That was the village where he spent part of his childhood after his father died. Memories rushed back clearly now. Mud houses, the smell of cooking millet, women singing at the well. Did you know a woman named Fatimata in that village? He asked, heart beating fast. At the name, Aminata lifted her head, her eyes finally meeting his. Her look showed deep emotion, a mix of surprise and recognition. Fatimata, she whispered. Yes, I knew her well. She was your biological mother. Ibrahim felt his throat tighten. So, you knew my mother and me? Aminata slowly nodded and tears formed in her eyes. I knew you when you were just a little boy, Ibrahim. You were only 5 when your father died. A heavy silence filled the space between them. In that hospital hallway, time seemed to stop. The sounds around them, nurses calling, voices on the speakers, people talking, suddenly felt very far away. It all felt like another world. Aminata, Ibrahim said in a very quiet voice, were you close to my family? The woman wiped a tear with the back of her hand, then answered simply, I was more than just a neighbor, Ibrahim. But maybe this is not the right place to talk about these things. Ibrahim understood. This hospital hallway, where anyone could interrupt them, was not the best place for such personal memories. Still, they could not stop the conversation just like that. Where do you live now, Aminata? In the Depoya neighborhood, sir. A small house I share with my niece. I will come visit you, Ibrahim said. Tomorrow, if that's okay with you. We can talk more. Aminata looked surprised. You would come to my house? But it's just a small home, not fit for a president. It's not the president who will come, Aminata, Ibrahim replied softly. It's the child from Kolweogo who wants to find his past. With those words, he had to return to the official group for the rest of the visit. But his mind was far away. As he listened without focus to talks about the lack of antibiotics and surgical tools, only one question filled his thoughts. What role had this woman played in his life? Why did her face feel both so familiar and so strangely important? Back at the presidential palace later that day, Ibrahim cancelled all his evening meetings. He locked himself in his office and opened an old photo album, one of the few personal things he kept through all his moves, his military career, and his rise to power. The faded photos showed a kind-faced woman, his mother Fatimata, holding a small boy's hand. In others, he saw the village, round huts, and the big trees where elders used to meet. But nowhere did he see Aminata's face. He called his assistant. I need all information about a woman named Aminata from Kolweogo who works as a cleaner at Yalgado Hospital. Keep this request secret. That night, Ibrahim could not sleep well. Childhood memories came back in pieces, like parts of a broken puzzle. He remembered a woman singing lullabies, cleaning his scraped knees, telling stories by the light of a kerosene lamp. Was that his mother? Was it Aminata? The faces mixed together, unclear in the mist of the past. The next morning, Ibrahim woke before sunrise. He had made his decision. He would go see Aminata, not as a president, but as a man looking for his past. His assistant had brought him a file with basic information. Aminata Traore, 63 years old, widow, working at the hospital since 1998, living in the Depoya neighborhood. Nothing unusual in her story, except her strong commitment to a humble job for so many years. Ibrahim dressed simply, in dark pants and a plain shirt. Only his driver and one security guard would go with him. No sirens, no big escort. Mr. President, his chief of staff said as he saw him leave, May I remind you that you have a video call with the President of Ghana at 11. Postpone it, Ibrahim replied calmly. Tell him I have an urgent personal matter. The president's car, with no official marks, moved through the busy streets of Ouagadougou. Morning traffic, street sellers, school children in uniform. Ibrahim Traore was watching the everyday life outside the car window. This life felt far away from his current role, but also so familiar. Through the tinted glass, he saw his city again, real and full of life. They finally arrived in the Depoya neighborhood, a maze of small streets and modest houses. The driver slowed down near a pale yellow concrete house with laundry drying in a small yard. "This is the place, sir," said the security agent who had found the address. "Wait for me in the car," Ibrahim ordered. "I want to go alone." He pushed open the metal gate, which creaked, and walked into the yard. A young woman was washing dishes near an outdoor tap. She froze when she recognized him. "Hello," Ibrahim said simply. "I'm looking for Madame Aminata Ouedraogo." Too shocked to speak, the young woman just pointed to a door slightly open. Ibrahim nodded and walked to the entrance. He knocked gently. "Come in," answered a familiar voice. Inside, the house was simple but very clean. Basic furniture, framed photos, colorful fabrics on the chairs. The atmosphere showed dignity despite the modesty. Aminata was sitting by the window, wearing a traditional outfit with blue and ochre patterns. She didn't look surprised to see him. "I was expecting you," she said calmly. "I made some tea." Ibrahim sat across from her. The silence between them was full of emotion. Through the open window came the sounds of the waking neighborhood, children's voices, motorbikes, a street vendor's song. "Aminata," Ibrahim finally said. "Since yesterday, I can't stop thinking about our meeting. There's something about your face. It feels like a memory I can't fully reach." The old woman poured the tea with slow, graceful hands. "Children forget often," she said softly. "It's normal, but sometimes the heart remembers what the mind forgets." She stood up, walked to a small dresser, and took out an old wooden box. She opened it and pulled out a small object. A bracelet made of colorful beads and cowries. "You wore this on your wrist," she whispered. "It was a gift from your mother, Fatimata. She had it blessed by the village marabout to protect you." Ibrahim held the bracelet like a sacred treasure. Suddenly, memories rushed into his mind. Him as a child, playing with the beads, counting them to fall asleep. "How do you have this bracelet?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. Aminata took a deep breath. "When your mother Fatimata became very sick, I was her closest neighbor and friend. I had lost my husband the year before, and we supported each other during hard times. When she felt the end was near, she asked me to take care of you." Tears ran down Aminata's cheeks, but she kept speaking. "For almost 2 years, I cared for you like my own son. I made your food, washed your clothes, told you stories at night so you could sleep. You called me Mama Nina because you couldn't say my full name." Ibrahim felt his heart stop. Mama Nina. Those 2 words opened a locked door in his memory. Suddenly, he remembered. A woman with a warm laugh, carrying him on her shoulders, teaching him bird names, curing his fever with bitter herbal drinks. "I remember," he whispered, overwhelmed. "I remember you, Mama Nina." Aminata smiled through her tears. "When Fatimata died, your uncle from your father's side came to take you. He believed that a boy should be raised by his father's family, like the tradition says. I begged them to let you stay with me, but I was just a woman alone, with no power. They took you to the city, and I was not allowed to see you again." Ibrahim stood up, unable to hold his emotions anymore. He kneeled in front of Aminata and took her hands in his. "You were my second mother," he said with deep feeling. "How could I forget you?" "You were so young," she answered softly. "And maybe the adults told you to forget me, to stop talking about me. That happens often. But you, how did you live all these years?" Ibrahim asked. Aminata gave a small shrug. "I left the village after you were taken. It was too painful to stay. I came to Ouagadougou and got this job at the hospital. I lived a simple life, always keeping your memory in my heart. And when you became a public figure, a respected soldier, then president, I watched your journey from far away in silence. I was so proud of you, Ibrahim. You should have come to me, he said, his voice full of emotion. And what would I have said? Hello, Mr. President. I'm the woman who took care of you for 2 years when you were a child. Who would have believed me? Who would have let me get close to you? Ibrahim understood her words. The rules, the security, the distance that power always brings. It would have made it impossible. But destiny made me fall on your freshly cleaned floor, he said, with a smile through his tears. Life moves in strange ways, Aminata simply replied. Time passed fast in Aminata's small house. Ibrahim forgot his work, his meetings, his duties. Sitting in that simple room, he was just a man, finding a lost part of his life. Aminata took out old photos. Some were from the village, some of Fatimata, and a few showed little Ibrahim on her lap. These photos were her treasure. Every year on your birthday, I made your favorite dish, she said. Rice with sauce and chicken. I shared it with the children around and prayed for your health and happiness. Ibrahim was very touched by her quiet love. All these years, you cared for me from far away. A bond of the heart never truly ends, Aminata said. Her niece, who had left quietly when the president came back with food, thick millet paste and a sauce made with baobab leaves. A simple meal, but it brought back memories of Ibrahim's childhood. Aunt Aminata often spoke of you, said the young woman shyly. But I thought it was just a story. I never thought the president would come to our house. Aminata looked at her niece with love. Fatou is like my daughter. Her mother, my sister Cadet, died 10 years ago. We take care of each other. Ibrahim turned to her. Fatou, your aunt was like a second mother to me, even if I forgot her. She gave me love when I needed it most. They ate together in a warm and simple moment. Ibrahim listened to Aminata tell stories about his childhood, how he fell in a shallow well and was saved, how he loved to act like a rooster in the morning, how he always slept holding a little blue blanket. Every story brought back lost memories. Do you remember the stories I used to tell you? She asked. The one about the hare who tricked the hyena, he said right away, surprised that he remembered. I always asked for that one. Aminata's face lit up. You remember. You always wanted to hear it, even when you knew it by heart. Ibrahim smiled, happy to feel close to his past again. Then his face became serious. This simple moment touched him deeply. Even after all his military success, his honors, and his power, he now saw true dignity and love. I want to do something for you, he said with feeling. You should not have to work so hard at your age, Ibrahim said. Aminata looked at him calmly. You came to me. You remembered me. That is already the best gift I could hope for. But Ibrahim shook his head. He was touched but serious. No, that's not enough. I owe you something, Mama Nina. A son's debt to a mother. I don't want to change your life in a way that would bother you, but please let me help. Let me make your life easier. I want to give you a proper retirement, good health care, and I want to hear more stories from my childhood. I want to learn more about my mother, Fatimata. I have so much to remember. Aminata looked at him with kind, wise eyes. If this is what you want, I accept, but I don't want anything fancy, Ibrahim. Just enough to live in peace with Fatou and maybe go back to the village sometimes to feel my roots again. Ibrahim agreed, touched by her simple heart. He stood up and gave her a warm hug. The smell of her clothes, with shea butter and incense, brought back many memories. It was the smell of love and safety. When he finally left Aminata's house, the sun was going down. His driver and bodyguard looked worried. Is everything okay, Mr. President? Asked the guard. Ibrahim looked one last time at the small yellow house where Aminata and Fatou stood at the door waving. Better than ever, he said. Today I found a part of myself again. Back at the presidential palace, Ibrahim went alone into his office. Missed calls, urgent files, diplomatic messages, all of it felt less important now. He called his personal secretary. "I want to create a foundation," he said. "A foundation to honor women like Aminata Ewadraogo, women who raise, care, and support others, often in silence and without thanks." "A wonderful idea, Mr. President," the secretary said, taking notes. "What will you name it?" Ibrahim thought for a moment. "Root of the Heart," he said, "because these women feed the hidden roots of our society." That night, Ibrahim slept deeply and peacefully, like he hadn't in years. In his dreams, he saw his village, his mother, Fatimata's smile, and Aminata's hands guiding his first steps. 3 weeks had passed since Ibrahim and Aminata met again. In that time, the president had prepared a comfortable house for Aminata and her niece Fatou in a nice area of Ouagadougou. It wasn't too big or too rich, just a respectful, peaceful place for her to enjoy her old age. He also arranged her early retirement from the hospital with a generous pension for her and Fatou. The hospital's HR director was first surprised by this request about a cleaning lady, but quickly understood it was very personal and handled it carefully. But Ibrahim still wanted to do more. That morning, an official car came to pick up Aminata and Fatou from their new home. The old woman was wearing her best traditional dress in the colors of Burkina Faso. She looked nervous. "Where are you taking me?" she asked the driver. "To the presidential palace, madam," he said kindly. "The president is waiting for you." Fatou held her aunt's hand. "Don't worry, auntie. I'm sure it's a good surprise." When they arrived at the palace, Aminata was surprised to see many ministers, journalists, and TV cameras. Ibrahim came to welcome her himself and held her hands gently. "Don't be afraid, Mama Nina," he said softly, using his childhood nickname for her in public for the first time. "Today is a special day." He walked with her into a big reception room where about 50 people were gathered. Among them, Aminata was shocked to see familiar faces, people from her old village, Kolweogo, hospital co-workers, and even the old Marabout who had blessed little Ibrahim's bead bracelet. When everyone sat down, Ibrahim went to the center podium. Aminata sat next to him on a special chair of honor. The national TV cameras were filming everything live for the whole country. "People of Burkina Faso," the president began, his voice clear and full of emotion. "I invited you today to speak about a personal and national debt." He turned to Aminata, who had tears in her eyes. "This woman beside me, Aminata Ewadraogo, was my second mother. When my real mother, Fatimata, got sick, she took care of me. She fed me, cared for me, and loved me like her own child. Then life separated us. But fate brought us back together by surprise during my visit to Yalgado Hospital." People in the room started to whisper. The story was touching their hearts. "For almost 25 years," he continued, "Aminata worked as a cleaner in that hospital. She lived simply, with dignity and strength. She never asked for anything, not even when I became president. It is this humility, this big heart, that I want to honor today, not only for her, but for all the unknown women across our country who raise, support, and build the future quietly, in the background." Then Ibrahim showed a plaque with Aminata's name on it and a message honoring her motherly care and her silent gift to the nation. After that, he gave her the keys to her new house and a document for a lifetime pension. But he wasn't done. "In honor of Aminata and all the official or unofficial adoptive mothers," he said, "I now announce the creation of the Root of the Heart Foundation. This group will help women who care for orphans or children in difficult situations. It will give them support, money, and public recognition for their important work in our society." Everyone clapped. The sound filled the room. Aminata's face was full of quiet tears. Then Ibrahim asked her to speak. At first, she was shy in front of the microphones and cameras. The old woman slowly stood up and fixed her traditional scarf with pride. I don't have the words of educated people, she began in a soft but strong voice. I just want to say that love has no limits. When I took care of little Ibrahim, I didn't think about the future. I never imagined he would become the president. I just loved a child who needed love. She paused, searching for her words, then continued with more confidence. In our villages, we have a saying, it takes a whole village to raise a child. Every woman who helps raise a child that is not her own is part of that tradition. I didn't do anything special. I only followed the path of our ancestors. Then she looked at Ibrahim with a big smile and said, I never stopped believing that God would let me see my son again. Today, my heart is full of joy. May God bless our president and our country. This moment, shown live on national TV, touched the hearts of people across Burkina Faso. In just a few hours, the story of Ibrahim and Aminata spread all over the country and even to other countries, shared by international news. What started as a simple meeting in a hospital became a strong symbol of African family values, community love, and deep respect between children and their elders. In the days after, the Root of the Heart Foundation received many donations and offers of help. Women from all over the country who were raising children that were not their own began sharing their stories. A new network of care and support was born. 1 month after the ceremony, Ibrahim planned a special trip to the village of Kolwego. It was the first time he had returned since he was a child. With Aminata beside him, he visited the small house where he had lived with his mother, Fatimata, and then the one where Aminata took him in after his mother became sick. The villagers were shy at first because of the president's visit, but they relaxed when they saw Ibrahim sit under the big baobab tree, listening to old stories about his childhood. Some still remembered the little boy running barefoot in the red dust. One old woman came close to Ibrahim and gave him a small object wrapped in cloth. It was a wooden spinning top, roughly made. You made this yourself, she said. You were so proud of it. You showed it to the whole village. I kept it all these years, hoping you would come back one day. Ibrahim took the top in his hands, deeply moved by this memory. He spun it on his palm, remembering how he used to play. Aminata, sitting next to him, watched with quiet happiness. For the first time in many years, she felt complete and at peace. The circle was full again. You know, she told a journalist, life is like a long cloth that we weave day after day. Sometimes the threads break, the pattern stops. But if we keep going with faith, the beauty of the design will appear. That evening, as the sun painted the sky with gold and red, Ibrahim and Aminata sat on a bench in front of the small house where they once lived. Below them, the village children were playing, their laughter rising like music into the darkening sky. Do you mind if people call me your son now? Ibrahim asked softly. Aminata smiled. Her eyes showed peace and fullness. You have always been my son, Ibrahim. In my heart, nothing ever changed. They stayed like that, sitting side by side, looking at the quiet land of their home. They were connected by a love that had passed through time, forgetfulness, and distance. A president and a former cleaning lady brought together by destiny in a story that now touched the hearts of an entire nation. And in the soft evening breeze, it felt like the spirits of the ancestors were whispering their approval. They were celebrating this victory of love over social rules, of memory over forgetfulness, and of gratitude over indifference. The story of Ibrahim and Aminata would soon become a modern legend of Burkina Faso, taught in schools as an example of the beauty of human connection that goes beyond social class, and the power of saying thank you. Because, as Aminata now often said with her simple wisdom, it is not power that makes a man great, but his ability to remember those who helped him stand.